Karki has casted her vote at a polling station in Kathmandu during national elections as voters across the Himalayan nation head to the polls. Gagan Thapa, the new head of the country's oldest party, Nepali Congress, casts his vote at a polling station in Kathmandu during national elections as voters across the Himalayan nation head to the polls. Let's listen into what Gagan Thapa has shared.
Nepal at this point of time needs very mature leadership, experience, as well as who has this appetite for change. So I'm here. So I have this appetite for change. I have a dream for change, but at the same time, I know our strength and I also know the limitations of Nepal as a nation state. I understand the pain of the constitution making. So sometimes we tend to forget that. So we face different challenges. So I came through all this learning. At the same time, I believe that whatever a young Gen Z feels, that this has to be speed, this has to be delivery. I completely not only agree, I completely believe in that. So I think I'm...
Meanwhile, former Prime Minister of Nepal, KP Sharma Oli, has said that the election will put the constitution back on a democratic track. Let's listen in.
यसले लोकतान्त्रिक बाटोबाट संविधानलाई फेरि ट्र्याकमा ल्याएर देशलाई स्थिरता स्थायित्वका साथ सुशासन र विकासको बाटोमा अगाडि बढाउनु पर्छ। भरसक बहुमत ल्याउँछ एमाले, प्रथम प्रजाति ल्याएन भने प्रमुख पार्टीको रूपमा आउँछ भनेर मैले पहिलेदेखि भनेको छु। जनतालाई दिग्भ्रमित पार्ने प्रयास र जनतालाई अल्मल्याएर कुनै योगदान नभएका त्यस्ता खालका तत्त्वहरूले भ्रममा पालेर घृणा फैलाएर घृणाको राजनीति गरेर यसरी देशलाई...
However, the voters have casted ballots in Bhaktapur, a historic city near Nepal's capital, Kathmandu, as armed police stood guard at the temple-lined square amid a general election seen as a litmus test for the Himalayan nation's next phase of political stability. The election comes nearly 6 months after youth-led protests over corruption and limited freedoms led to violent clashes and the resignation of then Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli. Let's listen into some voters.
ये भोट से नया सरकार बनेगा, नया सरकार से देश को विकास लगायत नीति निर्माण ऐन कानून बनाएगा देश र जनता के पक्ष में, इसलिए भोट डाला।
The kind of change we want in Nepal, especially we young generation, are very much sure. We are very much against corruption. We are very much for us, for the people, the working class. So yeah, that's pretty much sums up.
Now we welcome Mr. Retired Rear Admiral Krish Kumar Garg. He's an international affairs analyst and defense expert. Joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Rear Admiral, for joining us. Welcome to NewsX World. Now, how significant is the situation for Nepal, and what are you eyeing?
I think this situation and these elections are very, very significant for Nepal, especially in the light of the protests that happened last year. And if we see the history of Nepal's elections since 2008, when Nepal became a republic, it's not been a very happy situation. You know, governments falling, prime minister changing frequently. So it's not been a very stable government, and that has been one of the causes of the protests that happened last year. So I think a very stable majority government this time will be the key to Nepal's future. And I'm sure Nepal as well as India is waiting with bated breath to see whether Nepal will get a full majority government or it will be a coalition, and instability has been since 2008 that we have seen.
And you know, how vital is it for the upcoming, whoever wins this election, the government, to balance out their international relations with India and China?
I think it will be one of the toughest tasks of whoever leads the next government, because India has historically had very strong ties with Nepal. We have strong cultural ties. And for many years now, China has also been trying to develop a foothold, a stronger foothold into Nepal. And at times it leads to conflict of interests of Nepal with China and India. So I think a very, very delicate balancing act will have to be done by the Nepal government, whosoever comes into the power next in these elections. And in my view, I think in the previous government, there were certain pitfalls with respect to India. They probably, in my assessment, leaned more towards China, and India was not very happy about it. So I think some course correction will need to be done by the new government, and certainly India and China both will be watching the developments very, very eagerly and very, very closely.
With that, I'd like to thank Mr. Rear Admiral Garg for joining us today and sharing that insight with us on NewsX World. Now we move on to Indonesia.